Hello there. If you're interested in jelly printing and you'd like to learn how to make a bunch of prints using only household items, no commercial stamps or stencil or anything like that, no money invested, then let's hang out for a while, because today I'd like to show you how to make papers using, like I said, household items. And when we're finished creating the paper, I'm going to tear them up and create a collage, which you can watch, and you can find out that you can make art out of the papers that you make. Here's a preview. Okay? Meet me back at the table. Bye. Okay, so let's take an inventory, a quick inventory of some of the things that I've found in my house that could be useful for gel printing. And if you come up with anything even more interesting and you want to tell me about it, put it down in the comments. So just some basic stuff that I'm pretty sure everyone has around. This is just a piece of cardboard. I sprayed this with some water and peeled it off to reveal this stripy thing, which is interesting. This is the cover from my Chock Full of Nuts coffee, which is the only coffee, by the way, that comes in a stainless steel can that is infinitely recyclable. But what I like about it is it leaves this nice little grid pattern, so that's an interesting find. I use these, what are these called? Page dividers from Staples. They're made out of very resilient, stiff plastic, and I find them very useful for cutting out shapes and making masks, and I'll try to remember to go over masks when I'm finished. Styrofoam. These are from the bottom of meat containers. I take a razor and cut off the edges that are curled up. You can take a pen or a pencil or anything and carve right into them and transfer that right onto your gel plate. I don't know where I got this doily, but I have it, and it's a doily, and it's got a cute little cutout shape which would transfer very well onto the gel plate. These are those junk beads that for Mardi Gras and stuff like that, they leave a really nice trailing impression on your plate. A credit or gift card that I have cut. Can you see the zigzag pattern I've cut into it with a pair of scissors? That leaves a nice pattern. Any kind of bottle caps, any kind. The bottom of it will leave a solid impression. The top of it will leave a solid impression. The bottom of it will leave a ring, which can be very interesting. Same thing with this. Plastic fork from your kitchen. Drag that in, get some really nice shapes. Ha! Let me get this out of the way. String. Thin string is best. Gives you a nice impression. You lay it down and it covers up the area that you want to hide, and when you pull it off, you've got a really nice pattern. This was cut out of a piece of, I don't know, cardboard or, whatever, something like that. Rubber bands. Rubber bands leave a great impression. Pretty much, I think people might have them. This is a cork, which I tried using. I carved out a little line through it, and I tried using it on paper, on a hard surface. It doesn't like it, but I think it's going to like the jelly print. Cotton swabs. I laid these out in a row, put some masking tape on it, rolled them up in a little circle, and I've never tried them yet. You can tell they're so clean, but we're going to give them a test drive. Legos. If you've ever stepped on these in the middle of the night, you know that these are not awesome, but they do make an awesome pattern on your thing. This was a piece of packing material. I sprayed the top of it with water and peeled it off, and it revealed this awesome honeycomb thing. That's pretty cool. Okay, let's get to one of the most versatile pieces of equipment for making gel prints, textured gel prints, is a toilet paper or paper towel roll. So here's a couple things you can do. This one's got a lot of miles on it, but I took regular string and I wrapped it around it and glued it down. I do have a paint roller. I'll slip this in and roll it out, but you can just as easily do this sort of thing. Very cool patterns on that. So here's a couple things we're going to make in a little while, because I think the toilet paper rolls, everybody has one. I don't know how they would not. If you flatten it out and cut it up into pieces, you get these interesting little, I don't know, eye-shaped things that I will glue together with my glue gun. I'll show you how we do that. Start looking around your house. You're going to find that you see things differently. Once you start looking at everything that you see in terms of putting it on the gel plate, you will find that even earrings that you bought from China that set your ears on fire would make a really interesting impression in a gel plate. So in terms of what we're going to make today, we're going to make these cute-ass little things. You need something white here. Cute-ass little toilet paper things which make a really interesting pattern, and they cost absolutely nothing. And I really enjoy these, which I have made with my glue gun. These are just dots of glue on a piece of cardboard. Let them dry, put them in the, put them on your gel plate. They pick up the paint and leave little dots, which are wicked awesome. Okay, so I've pulled out some paint colors that I'm going to work with for today. I've got black, Mars black, titanium white, turquoise blue, and light olive green. These are all Liquitex basics. They're student grade paints. They're available through all of the craft stores. They're very, very accessible and reasonably priced. I've got my 8x10 gel plate. I have a brayer. I have some copy paper that we are going to experiment on. And I have off camera to the side a whole bunch of different gadgets that I just showed you. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down a layer of white paint mixed with a couple of colors. I don't know where I'm going with this. I really don't have a plan. I'm not a very good planner. I'm more of a spontaneous painter. I can already tell, just so you know, way too much paint is going to happen here, but I guess that's part of the learning. Drop just a little bit of this green on here to make sure I have too much paint. So if you're new at gel printing, there's a very fine line between too much paint and not enough paint, and the only way you're going to find out which one you've done is by experimenting. I believe that this is too much paint because I think it's going to end up being very squishy, but whatever. So I'm going to, just in terms of technique, you want to roll the brayer and lift it, because if you just roll back and forth like this, you're not going to be able to spread the paint. So I'm going to just kind of go in and out. Give this a spin if I want to mix colors up. That's a pretty color. Okay, I don't know where I'm going to start yet, but I think I'll just roll off on that sheet. That's a really pretty color. I think I will start with, I have really wanted to play with this string of beads for a while. So I'm going to lay that down. I don't want to overlap it. Let's just lay it down. Try that. I'm going to add a couple of rubber bands in there. And I don't know. I've never used these beads on a plate before, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to just push them down and have to pull them off. I'm going to find out with you guys. It's all a big experiment. Yeah, let's stick that there. I have this little cap that makes small rings. Let's try that. Let's make a big spot. Okay. I'm going to use this same piece of paper because I really like the roll-off stuff. But I have a feeling, you know what? I suspect, hold on a second. I think what I'm going to end up doing is just pushing these beads down and then removing them. Let's find out if that's a true story or not. And we'll find out. Let's put that there. I'll lay this down on top of here. I have a tendency to hold it down with one hand and press it out with the other. Pardon me, this is my new thing, clearing my throat all day long. Okay, you can see the shape of the rubber bands underneath it, so just give it a good press. This is just a first layer, so we're going to end up with white behind this, which is probably not a great idea. However, this is very pretty. It's a very pretty white thing. And do you see how subtle the little dots are with that? I don't know how well you can see from up there, and I don't know if it'll focus if I bring it closer, but look at that little bead pattern. I actually like that quite a bit. So I'm going to pull these rubber bands off and put them where? Put them there. Okay, this is an interesting pattern, and all it was 3 colors of paint with a little bit of texturizing. So that's interesting. I'm going to put that aside. The whole thing about jelly printing is every single bit of it is a crapshoot. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Even the seasoned jelly print people that you see online, the artists that are really, really killing it in this space, they don't know what's going to happen either. So I'm going to put white on here now with just, you know, I'm going to go white because I want to put something on top of these things that I just made. I want them to be textured. So let's try this. Let's take, no particular order, guys, as you can tell. I'll put that there. Oh, look at that. Ooh, ooh, I might be in love with this. This might be my new favorite thing. Yeah, definitely might be my new favorite thing. All right. See how I put everything right on top of the piece of paper that I want to use to print with? This is an ongoing issue for me. Let's pull that up. Actually, let's pull that on top of this and see if some of that color from behind will show through the areas that I just textured. That's the goal, is to get a multi-layer print. I never make these prints with the intention, oh, that's interesting. I never make these prints with the intention of making a complete piece of art. I imagine some artists do, but I'm big into tearing everything up and making a new thing with it. So I'm going to take this print and pull up what's left of this. If the paint is left on thick enough, you'll get what they call a ghost print, which is just a whisper of what the original print was. You can see my paper's all wrinkled up, but it doesn't matter. Okay, see how interesting that is? Nice little texture on top of that. Okay, I'm going to try something that I haven't tried before, so I don't know what it's going to come out like, but I'm going to use this olive green. Is that what it's called? Light olive green with a little bit of black, and try putting that over. That's probably not a little bit. That's probably way too much, but whatever. Let's see what we get. You get mostly black with a couple of dirty skid marks. Okay, well, that's the experiment. Okay, now what I should like to do next, I think I'm going to give this a try. This is my toilet paper roll covered with string, which leaves a very interesting pattern and totally gets all over your hands if you don't have a paintbrush thing. Okay, I'm going to put that on a new sheet. Is there anything else I can do to this before I go hog wild on it? Let me try, not because I want it to be a heart, but because I want it to be texture. Let me just try that, see what happens. Ooh, that took off a lot, so it may not be what I had in mind, but let's see what we get. This is a little gadget that I like to use in lieu of a Baron. It's just a coaster, just a little wooden coaster. But I like it when I'm trying to pick up a good amount because it gives a very even pressure. And if your hands are not strong and it's hard for you to lay them out flat, then using a coaster is a good way to get that nice impression. Okay. Now this actually appeals to me because I really do like dirty colors better than pure colors, but that's an interesting texture that by itself could be torn up and brought into collage, but it could also be covered up with another layer. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with that yet. I think what I'd like to do next is play around with this styrofoam, which I have not experimented with that much. So I've gouged into this one, and I've got this plain piece. Let's see what we can do to this plain piece to make it interesting. Move that out of my way. I'm going to, here you're cramping my style. Okay. I'm just going to score this with kind of the pointy edge. Just getting some little score lines, which is similar to what I did on that because it's easy and you get the basic idea. But if I wanted to, for instance, draw a picture of a leaf down the center, give it a little leaf line, maybe do one off the page like that. Perhaps add a little, I don't know, kind of like a little flower thing with a leaf off the side. Okay, let's go with this teal with a little bit of white. And find a piece of paper that's not brayered on. Okay, I'm going to mix that in and I'll get a little bit of a lighter teal. I've got a lot of teal, so it didn't really change the color that much. I love those roll-off sheets. Okay. I don't know how this is going to go, but we're going to find out. So I'm going to put that there and give it a press. Actually, let me use my interesting little pattern. Do some little circle-y thing, thingamajiggs. Okay, drum roll. Let's see what we get. Let's see what we get. Okay, so I can tell you that they're more interesting when they have more pattern in them than less pattern in them, but that doesn't mean that's a fail. That just means that it needs more layers. So I'm going to put that on the pile, and let's see what we can do next. This is my next tool, which is that little chopped up credit card. I'm going to just go with one color with a little drop of that to see if it's interesting. Let's see what we get. This looks like it's a fairly transparent color. So I'm going to grab this little credit card and give it some swirly marks, which are interesting on, hey, where's that fork? Kitchen fork. Similar. Pretty similar. go back to this. This is easier to use. Okay. Clean sheet, or let's put it on top of this, because this is not, it's not like a saver. Let's see what we get. Okay, that's interesting. This credit card is definitely more, leaves more interesting marks than the fork. But that doesn't mean the fork is a no. This would be really interesting, covering this up with masks so this will show through. Let's add that to the pile. I'm going to just pick up the rest of this on this roll-off sheet. Sometimes that makes a nice surprise. Okay. Ooh, right there. Into the pile. I think the next thing I'm going to try, since I have this sheet and it's fairly dark and I've got this piece of string, I'm going to put a light color on top of this, which is going to be white, and I'm going to put the string over it, and we're going to rub it out and see what kind of interesting pattern gets revealed. So, white, no other thing, just white. It's not even important that this is completely covered. I do it mostly out of habit. Okay, and just roll that out. Okay, so I'm going to wish I had more of this string, because this is going to leave a really interesting pattern. So let's, where's my rubber bands? Okay, let's just lay these out. Now these are going to reveal what's behind there. The white is going to cover. That's going to reveal. Okay, let's give it a go. I can feel those rubber bands, and I just want to give a nice impression around them, so I'm going to push inside and push outside. Got a woggedy piece of paper here. Oh, now that's fun. Look at how fun that is, guys. Look at how fun that is. Let me get these sticky rubber bands. Okay, you get the idea. Start out with a dark, you add texture to it, you cover it with white, and the texture shines through. That is a very fun little thing. Let's see if I can do anything with this ghost that will be interesting. What have I got besides putting my head in the way? Let's just pick it up with this. This has already got some texture on it, but it's not interesting. It just adds another, ooh, I think that's very pretty. Adds a very interesting layer. So the next thing I want to do is just show, this is simple. You can figure this out on your own, but I said I would show you, so I want to just show you how you can make some interesting shapes on your own, and then we'll run a print and see how they do. So what I do with the toilet paper rolls is I flatten it. Because I want them to all be the same height, I have a tendency to, let me just flatten this with something sturdier than my fingers. Okay, I'm just going to flatten that out so it'll behave itself while I draw lines on it. I like these to all be the same height so that I can put common pressure on them. So I'm going to take a ruler and just draw some quick lines. Chop them up. So I'm going to just basically, I've got a pretty good sized glue gun set up over here, which honestly I never use, but I'm going to use it with you today. And I'm just going to drop a little drop of glue. Way too much, Sheree. Way too much. Okay. That little pattern like that. Oh, let's try it. Ooh, it's hot and it's sticky. Okay, I like the idea of what I'm getting ready to do. Instead of making this little flower thing, I don't know what this is going to turn into because I've never done this, but I'm going to just keep gluing these together and see. I'm so skilled with my glue gun. I've only used it a handful of times because it's kind of more craft than art, but I'm going to turn this craft right into art. All right. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, one more dot. Move that off camera. Spin this around. Did I get too much glue in there? Okay, that's a pretty little thing. That's a pretty little thing. Let's see what it does. Before I do that, let me show you how to make this. This is a simple thing, but I've already got a hot glue gun, and we'll have two things to play with that are glue gun related. So this, I've got just this regular head on my glue gun. I don't think it really matters which one you use. The whole point of it is just to create some sort of repeating pattern that you can press into your wet paint and get a design that is not a stencil that you bought at the craft store, something that is here, that is specifically yours. It has your own unique way of doing something that no one else can copy because there is only one you, and you do everything exactly your way. You can do whatever you like. Yeah. Okay. So you get the basic idea. Here, let me just finish this so it'll be done. I can see I'm not trying to be careful because it doesn't matter. You're going to cover most of this stuff up anyways. You're just looking for subtlety. Let's do black and white, which will give us a pretty gray, which will make me happy because I really like neutral colors. And see what we get. Okay. Let's see what we get for a pretty gray. Too much black. Not enough white to get a pretty gray, but this will do. Okay, how are we going to do this? I'm going to lay that down and give it a press. It's going to be very subtle. It doesn't remove a lot because these are not thick shapes. But let's try this. I'm going to wiggle it a little bit, see if I can dig into it. Oh, that's kind of interesting. Okay, let's try that. And since I've already made this thing and it's not sticky, let's add some dots to it. Okay. I'm going to just try this roll-off sheet, even though it's got black on it. Let's see what it looks like. I think I've mentioned some of my favorite things are the roll-off sheets because it adds this thin layer of textured paint that I don't know how you get it any other way other than with a brayer. And it's very recognizable, but that doesn't make it any less pretty. Okay. Oh, interesting. This actually shows more than I expected it to. Ah, I can see why. Okay. Because I did a roll-off sheet, there's a big swath of black up the middle, but look at the white that's coming through there. Look at that very interesting pattern. So I want to give this another go with some other thing that we haven't tried yet. But I think that's interesting, and I would like to try it again, maybe with a color that you guys would like rather than I like. Let's try this again with the teal, with the light olive. Way too much paint. Let's give part of it a mix. Oh, this is a ton of paint, guys. Yeah, way too much paint. Let me roll some of that off. When you roll it off and go back over it, you're pulling off more paint. You can make it a little thinner. Okay, I want to try that again. I think that those shapes were a nice surprise. I'll wiggle it a little bit so maybe it digs down a little bit deeper. Is my head sticking in? My head is always sticking in. Let's try this little shape too. And some dots because why not? Okay, let's pull that. I don't love the color. Very interesting. It does cut right through. Give it a little wiggle. It'll cut right through and leave a really interesting design. Okay, I'm going to bring something new into the mix that we didn't talk about, but you can make this using manila folders or that blue stuff that I showed you, this staples stuff. This is just a bunch of circles that I cut out, and they make a really interesting overlapping pattern which will cover most of this, and some of that will show through. Okay, you can see that I have made a major commitment to these little circles because I don't think you can go wrong when you're using geometrics, especially round ones. So I'm going to work with white on most of these because it's lighter than most of the colors that we've put out. Let's see what happens. I'm going to just start at the top so I don't start getting precious about things. That black one's going to be the first thing to go, and then we'll figure out what happens next after that. Okay, we're just going to throw some of these circles on here. Okay. Do I want to texture it, or do I just... Let me just make the point. Here, let me just toss one more there. Okay, this is going. These are fortunately nice and flat. They're not hard to pull from. Oh, now that's quite nice. Okay, so see what's happening here? Circles covered everything that's black, and now we've got an interesting pattern. Now, had I bothered, and you could as well, had I bothered to texture the plate, there would be even more of the color showing through, but I did not, so I'm going to set that aside. I've never done this before. I've watched people do it. They actually put paint over what's already there. I've never done it before, so we're going to give it a try and see what happens. It's going to make my circles pretty messy, but where'd you go, dude? Kind of screwed that one up. You know, I would like to... This is the one we just made. Let's give it a test drive. Oh, interesting pattern. I like it that they're not round circles. Let's try that. Do I pull them? I don't know what to do, so I'm going to... I'm just going to try it. I don't know if I'm supposed to pull the circles off or not, so let's see what happens. Okay. So that's interesting. I like it that this... Oh, it picked this up off the plate. No, that's from behind. Oh, I like it. I like it. So you can see an interesting thing happening there. I'm going to pull that ghost on. Let's just pull it on this, which has already got a ghost on it. Okay, that pulled up the ghost. Now, I'd like to go back in with circles and maybe do... Let's try this one next. I did get Precious. See this? I didn't want to cover it up because I think it's pretty. So there's that problem that we have. Okay, what can I do on top of this? I don't want to do white because I think it's not going to be bright enough. Maybe I will do teal. And do I add black to it? Sure. Why not? Vicki always says, I'm hearing black. I'm hearing quinacridone magenta. I'm not actually hearing anything in particular. I'm just winging it here. I'm just going to spread that around kind of loosely. I've got a big blob of black there. We'll see. That's pretty. We'll see if that's a bad idea or a good idea. Let's just use these already sticky circles. Our new texture plate that we just made, which I'm quite fond of. Look at, cool. Okay, here we go. Goodbye to this. Okay, you ready? Oh, look at that texture-y thing. Now, if I were working with botanicals today, which I'm not because not everybody can have botanicals, this would be covered up with a botanical and all of that goodness would show behind some sort of a plant, which I think would be very fun. I missed a whole bunch of things, but now that you know what they are, this would make a really interesting pattern. I'm curious about that. Actually, I'm so curious about it that I need to find out right this minute what it does. Oh, it does that. Well, it's not going to transfer. Look what it does to this, though. Oh, that is freaking awesome. Yeah, make one of these, guys. So I literally just finished recording a session making these papers. And they're made with common household items, no stamps, no stencils, nothing commercial at all, just stuff you find around the house. And now I'm inspired to turn this into a collage on this 11 by 14 canvas. And if you are interested in watching that happen, then stick around. The pieces that have my attention to begin with, that started this whole thing, are, all right, but this, all right? This is what started it. I know it's a roll-off sheet, but the minute I laid it down on this board, I knew I wanted to put it there. I don't know what I want to do with this, but there's parts of this that I really like. I like that round shape. I like this stripe across here. Somehow I see it going across there. I'm not sure. I really like the contrast of this. I love how the black and white looks with the green. So that's going to make it in there. So when I'm working with photocopy paper, and all of this stuff is made on photocopy paper, I like to use a thicker glue. I used to use Elmer's glue almost exclusively. I just would mix it with water. I like to use this because it is not liquid. It's a solid and it doesn't wet this paper. These papers don't like getting wet. They're supposed to be for mail. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint up the back of this thing and I'm just going to lay it right down. And I recognize that there's a lot of white on here, but I have pens and I have Sharpies and I have all kinds of ways to make that go away. So I'm going to make every effort to not have my head be in the camera today. I have, so far, I have a 100% failure rate of keeping my head out of the camera. But I'm working on it. So, for now, I won't know until I start editing whether or not I made it. Not hopeful. I'm considered, actually, if you can believe this, because this happened so fast, I'm considered to be elderly. I'm going to be 70 in April. And they, they actually call people my age elderly, which I find astounding. I don't feel elderly at all. Sometimes when I look in the mirror, depending on the day, I do look a little elderly, but I don't feel it. I'm just going to grab any old credit card, gift card. I keep a pile of them over there just for this occasion. I'm going to lift that up and get rid of that wrinkle. I can see that I missed the edge here, but a lot of times what I do with these is I put the papers down and then I paint the edge and, you know, do some things. Okay. So there's areas of this that are not completely pressed down. I don't know what it is I like about this. I probably like the contrast. I thought I hated the color, but I can picture myself. I like to embellish. I like to do mixed media, so I can picture myself drawing on that big green canvas there. I was just getting ready to do all kinds of overthinking, and I made myself stop. Okay, this is going. It's going right there, and I'm going to leave that edge on because I know I'm going to end up covering it. I have been a practicing designer, not artist, for a long time. But I am very new at making, all of my design work was done digitally. I'm very new at making physical art. And digital art is a lot more forgiving because you can change anything. Paper is a little more solid. I do like that. Of interest to me on this sheet is this dark stripe right here, which I end up seeing somewhere along here. I'm going to miss that. I'm not going to be able to get that torn off unless maybe you know what? Let me just tear backwards. Try to do this so that you guys can see what I'm doing. Yeah, there's probably a way to do this that's very obvious, but I don't see it right now. So that's going to end up, I missed that. That's going to end up there. Okay, so I'm going through some of these papers. I'm looking for something here. And I keep going back to this one, so that's the one I'm going to choose. Yeah, I keep going back to this area in particular, which was that heart-shaped doily that I was sure I was not going to like at all, but here we are. Do I want to take that line down? So I started to talk about my experience with digital design. When I first started working in digital design, I did it online, and I did not, I knew nothing about abstract. So I used an online program called Polyvore, and most of the images that I worked with were squares. So I have developed a rather quilt-looking way of creating art that I'm having a hard time breaking up with, but maybe I don't need to. So I'm going to cut this. That's where that's going. Like that. That's going down before I start second-guessing myself. Sometimes I have to race against myself because my critical mind, is it a critical mind? I don't know. I'm usually a pretty intuitive person, but the part of my mind that needs to be right can often foil the creative process. And I have to override my inner critic regularly. Okay. Nice clean edge there and there. I'm not going to like that ragged edge. I'm going to cut it off. I'm cutting it off, guys. I'm going back to my roots of square edges. But you know what? Sometimes it's just the right thing to do. And right now it feels like it is. So I don't know if watching this is like watching paint dry. There are times when I watch other artists and it can be a challenge to watch somebody collage. And I understand why so many of us fast forward through it. But it is interesting to watch the process, especially if I force myself to be less critical. I'm just glue it down. Just glue it down. Okay, don't turn this into a big project. It's just paper to remind myself regularly. You could be a little nicer to yourself than I'm being to myself, but I'm just going to glue that thing down because it's pretty and it can live there until something says, no, I'm moving it over. Just to give you a little insight into my thinking, I feel like this area down in here is going to be, I'm going to take a Sharpie magic marker or a Posca pen or whatever I decide on, and I'm going to fill that with small dots. That feels like something that's going to happen. This actually feels like it might end up being something like a drawn, sketchy, leaf-looking thing. I usually like the concept of a botanical, even if it's not the actual botanical. I like working nature into, it seems to work itself into most of my work. That needs some love, but I don't know what it needs, but I'll figure it out. Okay, I would like to deal with this area here. I'm just going to leave that white there. I'm going to put this on here. I'm going to leave that white there. Probably the reason I'm going to leave that line there is because I've got some pictures of dots or dashes or some kind of pattern or texture that I'm going to stick in there. So these papers, I've mentioned this before, but just to elaborate while I'm gluing, were made entirely out of stuff from the house. Cardboard, toilet paper rolls, a doily, a heart-shaped doily. So that's where I am right this minute. And I am going to let this set up for a while and dry so that I can contemplate what is next. And I think next is going to be some embellishment, some white, some black, some things. BRB. My name is Sheree Burlington. I'm an artist, an errant, an angel mom, and I really enjoyed making this piece of art and sharing the process with you. If you liked what you saw today and you'd like to, so many likes, like the video if you want, subscribe if you'd like to hear more from me, and thank you for hanging out. I appreciate your time. Goodbye.